not going to stand. I'm just going to sit here so because you all can see me.
Great.
I am Sherry Hendricks. I'm the registrar, and hello to all of you zooming in. I'm going to just go a little bit briefly about what the Office of Registration and Records does and the services that we provide. I'm going to do just a little bit of training. Some of you may have already worked with grades and grading and all that stuff, but just in case you haven't, we're going to kind of go through the process of doing the grades. And then we're going to have two other people come in. Chad Melton will be here. He's from Career Services. And then Laura Breckner from the Student Success and Calling Office will be here to talk about some advising and mentors and how that process works. But first we're going to start with registration and records and what faculty really need to know. The primary purpose of our office is to support the mission of Spring Arbor University by fulfilling the roles of guardian and steward over the academic records, policy, and history. So we guard, we protect, we enforce policy, academic policy. And then we are advisors for curriculum and academic policy and development. So Katie and I have had an opportunity already to kind of talk a little bit about biology programs, and then she's also worked a little bit with our office catalog copy and how that works. So we work and advise on curriculum. I also personally head up what's called the Startup Success Support Team for any new academic programs that are going to be launched, and I chair that committee, and we bring together all the people behind the scenes that work with business or financial aid and marketing and everybody that's involved in the process of launching a new program, and we sort of help facilitate and ask questions so that their startup is successful, which is why it's called the Startup Success Support Team. So we help with that and advise for curriculum and that. And then we are collaborators in and executors of processes and procedures that support the administration and maintenance of academic programs and educational offerings. So we do a lot of processes and procedures to fulfill the policies that the Senate or anybody else has come up with. We try to make things streamlined to help students through. We have forms, and we work with the other offices to make sure what we're doing aligns with what they need and that kind of thing. So we kind of operate as sort of a hub of the university, and everything else sort of flows out from that. So we work a lot with admissions, we work with financial aid, billing, marketing, student support, advisors, faculty, just everybody. Our office is very central, I guess, to the university. Our main campus staff, we have three different sort of campuses, if you want to call it. We have main campus, global, and then graduate. Our main campus staff is comprised of, I'm over all of them, so me. Ron Haltman is the assistant registrar for the main campus, and he handles transfer credit evaluations for main campus students. He does all of the international student reporting, which is a really big job, and there are a lot of regulations involved in that. And he does all of the updates for the advising guides for all of faculty and staff advisors. Jennifer Sutton is our secretary receptionist. She's the first one that you see when you come into our office, and she has a nice warm greet. She greets our visitors, directs callers, and guests to the appropriate resources needed. Leslie Peruch is our records coordinator, and she mainly handles undergraduate main campus online registration and registration for the BSW online. She handles setting up all the classes and getting all the students in and out, and registration drops and adds and all that. She also does our reporting to the National Student Clearinghouse, which a lot of you probably don't know what that is, but that's a very big report, and it really helps with our financial aid, keeping us updated, helping track students from when they come to our university or leave. There's a lot of enrollment data that goes into that to that clearinghouse, and they also help support our transcript orders. So students will order transcripts through the National Student Clearinghouse, and we fulfill those orders, but they have a system that we use. She's the transcript order supervisor. She does the digital records supervising when we digitize records, and she also reports for veterans for main campus. Holly Hurtado, she's our records coordinator, and she sets up all the main course schedule basically, and does all the room scheduling for what happens on campus. She does registration for main campus students. So even though they register themselves through their student portal, She handles any drops or adds or withdrawals and any kinds of manual processes that have to take place outside of the registration periods that we have set up. And she also is our undergraduate catalog and editor and coordinator. And that's a really big job too. Elena Gunther is our graduation coordinator. She does all the graduation audits for juniors and seniors and kind of helps them understand what they have remaining to take to graduate on time and to finish their degree. She assists the Academic Affairs and President's Office in the coordination of commencement. She does NAIA reporting and eligibility certification. She works with the faculty athletic representative, who is Miriam Sellers, and myself. We all three of us work together on NAIA, the student athletes eligibility. And then she also confers the degree for main campus students when they graduate. For the global site staff, Rob Kingsley is our assistant registrar. He evaluates transfer credits for global students, which is a huge job because most of them are transfer students. He does veterans reporting for global students. He confers degrees for global students, and he does so many other things. I couldn't list them all right here. I mean, he just basically runs the registration operations for the global site. Jan is our records coordinator and prior learning assessment. She coordinates the prior learning evaluations. Those are mostly for our global students, for our site students, the degree completion. They have an opportunity to do prior learning, life learning papers and things like that to help them finish their degree requirements. She evaluates the BSW transfer credits for site students, and she sets up courses in the database for the global sites. And again, Jan does much more than that. It's hard to, these are just sort of a summary, the main things that they do. Our graduate staff is Terry McClintock. She is the assistant registrar, and she oversees everything having to do with graduate students. And then Sherry Manti is our graduate records coordinator. She serves as kind of an assistant to Terry, and she's taking on more and more responsibility. And Terry is training her basically to take Terry's place as she anticipates retirement in the next few months. I hope it's longer than that, but she is anticipating retiring very soon. So
Sherry.
This is our other Sherry. This is the other Sherry. I call her the other Sherry.
Do you mind going back one screen for just half a second?
Sure, if I can do it. So we have a Ron Holtman and a Jan Holtman.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and Ron is on the main campus side, and Jan works with mostly our site students. She also does a lot of training with the global site advisors. When you should contact us. Anytime you have questions about grades or grade changes or grade reporting or incomplete grades or tutorial grades or independent study or any kind of things that have to do with grades. For campus faculty, grade change forms can be, basically have to come to our office to get a grade change form. I'm working on changing that at some point, but at this point that was one of those on the low priority list. For site and online faculty, anybody who is a remote faculty member, typically they will, if you request from either Jan, for site, either Jan or Rob, and then for graduate, Terry or Sherry, they will send you via email a form that you'll have to download, sign, scan, and send back, but it can be done remotely. Commencement questions, Elena in our office, I think she orders the faculty regalia, I think. Anything that has to, anytime students have questions about commencement, just send them to Elena or send them to our office and we can answer those questions. Any questions about curriculum and advising, especially if you become an advisor or if you are an advisor, we often have a lot of advice to give you about advising and you know, if there are questions about prerequisites or what the student really needs to take, or will this fulfill this requirement or whatever, we can kind of advise you on that. Question about graduation requirements, again, how many credit hours, what are the upper level, you know, anything like that. Questions about your class roster, if you think somebody should be on your roster and isn't, or if somebody's on your roster that hasn't shown up for class, or you see a student that's a freshman and you're teaching a senior level course, or whatever it is, so you have questions about your roster, you can ask us and we'll try to work that out. Oops. Questions about any academic policies. There are a lot of them, so I won't go over any of them, but any kind of academic policies. Questions about FERPA, which is students' privacy, and I'm going to touch on that just a little bit in a minute. Talk a little bit about FERPA. Any questions about any academic forms, student forms, any forms you need to fill out? Questions about student registration in the portal, and then any questions about anything. We will field any question.
Wow.
We will give you, if we don't have the answer, we'll either find it for you or point you to the right place to find it. And my staff wanted me to emphasize very much to everybody, please come see us. We're not scary. We like to have fun.
Rob's pretty scary.
Well, Rob can be, yeah, Rob can be. But we really like to interact with the faculty and get to know you better so that we can put names and faces together when we're trying to help you and serve you with questions and things like that. We really like to have that connection. So please feel free to stop by and I'll tell you where our office is. FERPA. This is, how many of you know about FERPA? Okay, so I'm not going to necessarily go over it, but I did want to show you this part. The basic idea behind FERPA is just try to keep the student information as private as possible. Parents do not automatically have the right to see their students' information, but you have a way to look up whether or not a parent is FERPA authorized. So under My Work on your portal, you need to know the student's ID number. That's the one thing. So if a parent calls in and you ask what's your student's ID number, so you can put that in to see if the parent is released, or if you don't know their ID number and you can't look it up, the best thing to do would be to just say, hey, I'll call you back, contact our office, we can look it up for you, whatever, I'll call you back, I need to find out some information or whatever. But even if you don't have access or you can't get a hold of one of us in our office to look up the ID and see if there's a FERPA release, you can always, I have some recommendations about how you can talk to parents or the non-student who wants to know information. So
are you going to do a little more on what it says?
Yeah, all you have to do, that you put in the ID number and then the screen will pop up and it will say so-and-so has been, so if the parent is there, like Deborah Jones has been confirmed
Very good.
yeah, and it'll have
So it'll
that
say
information.
who's.
So you ask them, so when you call them back or when you're talking to them, you say, and then I always ask for some kind of personally identifiable information about the student. So can you give me their middle name, or can you give me what's your address, or something like that, or what's the password that you're supposed to have to get in, or whatever. So there are a lot of ways you can figure out to confirm that that person is the person. And if you're ever all in question, just refer them to our office. If you're not sure or you just don't know, or say, hey, I'm going to have you talk to the registrar's office about that, we will always be willing to handle that. Just quick brief review of FERPA. If parents aren't cleared, you can speak in terms of policy. So, for example, we had a situation where we had to get rid of, the state pulled some funding, and some parents were very upset because the state, they no longer had this scholarship or whatever. And we said, okay, well, we had parents calling in, one of them wasn't cleared on FERPA, and I said, I can't talk to you specifically about your students' progress or anything like that, but what I can tell you is our policy. And our policy is that when students are registered for such and such a thing, they have to do this and this and such. And so maybe you want to talk to your student, your kid, about how they might fit into that policy. So it gives them at least a talking point, and you can give them enough information so that they kind of get an idea of what's going on without giving them any real information. So I don't know if that helps, but you can always talk in general terms and in policy. And usually if the parents have a concern, it's due to a grade or a policy or something. So you can always talk about what our policies are and how that sort of relates to their student in not necessarily specific ways. So I don't know if that helps. Anything you share with another employee automatically becomes an educational record. So just be careful about what you share via even Facebook. Anything that you share about a student can become an educational record. So just be wary. Any advising notes that's between you and the student doesn't necessarily become an educational record, but anything that becomes shared with someone else. So also be careful about where you talk about students. If you're in the vicinity of other employees or another student or whatever, if you're trying to confer with another faculty member, you guys understand the FERPA, but just make sure you're not, like in the cafeteria, don't be talking about a student where the students are all around and can hear you. Don't post any grades in the public view. So obviously, those are private. And then anytime you feel like you might have violated FERPA, please self-report to me so that I can at least get it in writing. I have a file of self-reported FERPA violations, and then we have ways of resolving them and communicating that a FERPA violation has been, we have had a FERPA violation, and we usually have to contact the students that might be involved in that violation and blah, blah, blah. And then keep record of how we resolve that. So just in case it ever comes up, I've never heard of a FERPA lawsuit, but you never know. So grades, the deadlines for submitting grades are usually published, but typically the schedule is 5 days after the end of the semester for traditional students, 1 week for accelerated, for site and online courses. And then the reason why it's very important for faculty to submit grades on time is we have a lot of stuff to do behind the scenes to get ready for the next semester, specifically academic status, where we put students on probation or we dismiss them. And sometimes there's a very small window for that to happen, to give students the ability to appeal and go through that whole process. So it's very important to get grades in on time. And then I was going to go through the how to do grades if you guys feel like you need that, but it's through the portal. Our grading scale is this. Please, I wanted to emphasize this. When you're giving a C minus, please be careful about giving C minuses. The reason is this. C minuses for many classes do not count as passing. So if it's a C minus, then sometimes the student, if it's a D plus, students aren't even going to try to petition or there's no problem. But if it's a C minus, sometimes they're like, can it count as a C? Can I have this to count as the passing grade? So we get a lot of petitions in our office, specifically for courses that are in the major. They're major courses. A lot of gen eds, it doesn't matter if they get a C minus, but specifically for courses in the major. So be very thoughtful before giving C minuses. Sometimes it's just the way it calculates and there's no way around it, and that's what it has to be. But just, we like to kind of emphasize that. If there's any way to give them something less or more, it would be a D plus or a C, it would be great. But obviously, if that's the way it calculates and that's the grade, then that's the grade. So I wanted to notice the difference between in progress and incomplete. IP means that basically you haven't given them a grade yet. And those are really only reserved for internships and practicum after the grade deadline. Incompletes can be used for extenuating circumstances, for if students get sick, if they have an illness in the family, if they have to leave campus, if they get cancer, whatever. Those are for extenuating circumstances, and they have a limited time to get those done. Typically, if we run across an incomplete, we'll ask a faculty member to sort of give us a reason why they've done the incomplete. And they only have 6 weeks to complete an incomplete. And if they're not done in 6 weeks, it automatically turns to a U, which is an F in most other places, but it's a U. And so, that can really hurt their GPA and that. So if you're going to do an incomplete, please be diligent. Make sure that they get it done in 6 weeks or, whatever. Where to find us? We're in the Dietzman Hall in the upper level. When you go in the main doors, you turn to the left. We're there. You can get us by email. You can get us by phone. You can find us on the website. There's all kinds of stuff in the portal. There's all kinds of information on where you can find us. But we're in Dietzman Hall. Y'all know where Dietzman Hall is? It's sort of, and then you just go in the front doors and turn to the left, and that's where we are. Anybody have any questions about registration and records? You probably do, but there's so much. But anytime you have any question of any sort, ask somebody in our office, and we can probably point you in the right direction.
Well, I do have a more specific question we can handle later, but in general, as I move into advising students, the information that I've got right now in my position is not real clear for my particular area of student music education students, and we're having to rely a lot on the education department. Is that something that you guys can help me clear up if I come in and see you?
Yeah. Yeah, if there are questions about the curriculum and there's not, your department is a good place to start to talk to them about certain things.
But the form that our department has, I've taken that to Patty Johnston in the education department. She said, this looks outdated. So I'm concerned that any advice I may be giving to our students is not gonna be good. So that's something that I could bring that form to you guys and we could sit down and look at that.
Yeah, yeah, and if it's a form that we've updated, if it's one of our forms, we can probably help with that. If it's one of your forms or your department forms that needs some updating because of catalog
Right,
changes or
right.
policy changes or whatever, we can certainly take a look at that
Great.
too. You can even just shoot that to me in an email. And I
Great.
could, yeah, if you've got it digital, if you've got it electronic or
If
digital,
not,
just
I can scan it, sure.
just send it to me and then I can look at it that
Okay.
way and
Great.
give comments back.
Great,
So,
thank you.
Yep. All right, next up is Chad Melton. He's
Woohoo.
going to be giving us some, I have no, here, stop share, there it is. He's going to be giving us some information about career services and Anna's Bones with him as well. So hopefully we get some really good information from them. So
Nice.
you guys are up.
We have some folks on.
There are 2 people by phone and 1 by Zoom that's zooming in, or there was somebody by Zoom that they're gone, but 2 people by phone.
I think that's actually her on the left, isn't it? Or is that showing what it's here?
I think that's.
That's us. Thank you.
I just swallowed.
We'll see if you survive. Okay.
Woo! I just swallowed wrong.
Who do we have on the phone calling in?
Hi, this is Lori McVeigh from Sociology.
Oh, hi, Lori.
Hi.
This is Camille Jones from the MAC department.
Great. Camille. And then, would you guys mind introducing yourselves to us?
Sure, I'm Richard Hinsey. I'm choir director, and I'm actually in my 2nd year, but I was unable to make enough of the meetings last year that Provost said,
You should be here.
you gotta be here this year, so here I am.
Great.
Mike Nightingale, chemistry.
Katie Weekland, biology.
Very good. Well, I'm Chad Melton. I've been a career advisor here. This is my 5th year. So I get to work with Anna and she'll tell a little bit about herself too. A couple of the things that we really want to highlight for you all is some of the ways that we support our students are through helping them prepare for internships or job search. If you also have students who kind of bump up against the questions of, I'm not sure that this is the right direction for me, or I'm not sure how I want to use this major. These are all things that we help students with. So those are some key things. In regards to MAC, I know Lori would be mainly on the main campus, and she's had us in her class before, so she would have some experience with us. But we do work in helping identify internship locations for Masters of Counseling students and have hosted interns in our own offices, so we know quite a bit about that. I'm a supervisor for our site, so I have a pretty strong relationship with Denise Johnson, so definitely feel the freedom to reach out through her or directly in regards to Masters of Counseling specifically.
One of the things that for undergrad students that you might want to know about is for domestic programs away from campus, so like ASABL Institute or LA Film Studies or Nashville, we run those programs through our office, so where Guatemala is living in cross-cultural, we host the ones that are domestic, so Chad is the one that you would want to direct students to for that, and the sooner they know and express interest as you hear them talk about it, send them to us, because there are some time-sensitive dates where they should be applying for scholarships in order for their tuition to cover it and build it into their plan so they aren't falling behind, and they can graduate on time. So that's another thing that we like to catch students, especially in their end of their freshman, sophomore year, beginning of their sophomore year, just so that we can slide it in enough time.
You may hear students from the music department looking at the Nashville program. It's a contemporary Christian music program,
Right.
semester away, and then ASABO, and we had a student go to Alaska to do some research. So
So
there's
the
a
one
lot
that
of
Hank just finished?
correct,
Yes.
Okay.
right. So those are all things where the sooner the better. I mean, because we work with the registrar, we work with financial aid, the business office, and making sure it works well with their classes, that they'll be substituting in and things like that. So there's a lot of pieces to that. So those are great things. We can forward this to you all online. I'm sure Amanda will help us get your emails about contact information, but one of the services we do is if, say you need to be away for a conference or you can't be in a class and you would be open to having us come and take your class for you, we would do some professional development. We've done some things for COL classes. We've stepped into Tom's class on the Old Testament survey. You know what I mean? Like whatever that might be, and
that's a good
do
idea.
some practice interviewing or, you know, some things that would get them thinking about next steps. So if you have open slots and you would like somebody to fill a class for you, that's what don't cancel that class. Handouts kind of alluding to, so.
We do love partnering with faculty, especially in like senior seminars as they're thinking, about next steps. So we can talk about resumes and come in and lead mock interviews in front of the class. Those have been really great practice for students in front of their peers, even though it's a little nerve-wracking. It's good experience for them to even just see how other people are interviewing. And we'd love for you to be part of that too. So even if it is you inviting us into your class while you're there, we love that partnership too. So.
We work closely with the alumni office to try to, we really believe that connecting deeply with our alumni will be a big benefit for our current students. So we worked hard at helping maintain those connections, and there's a mentoring alumni program that we help just to advocate for, and a lot of our things that we plan, Katie was a part of a living and working abroad session that we did during Career Week, and so almost everybody involved were alumni who are coming back to speak to their experiences and to share what that world was like for them as they've transitioned. So we really feel strongly that those are great resources and great connection points. So that would be something that we work hard. So if you have a class that you would like to have help kind of seeking out somebody that's maybe a local alum who would be relevant in that, you know, we or Steve Castle could help with that part as well. Some of our, we just came out of a big event, a big week called Career Week. Hopefully you saw all our stuff everywhere about that. But we do etiquette dinners and mock interviews and sessions with the state of Michigan because they're our top 3 employer. You know what I mean? Like we have a lot of people working with the state, you know, so things like that. We try to partner with the faculty to bring in things that might be really relevant to their space, whether that's the social work organization or Kathy was just making us aware of the seminars that you all are doing. So anything that comes to mind that we can help with those things or just be present to keep meeting people out in the field is very helpful. We do facilitate the graduate survey process, so that would be kind of the first destination for all of our students, and that would be online sites and on main campus. So as you see any kind of promotion of 95% of our students have either a grad school or employee, you know, that data comes from the work that we help coordinate with. So sometimes we may reach out to faculty to say, have you heard from this student? We're having a hard time tracking them down, you know, so know that that's institutional, that's not just career development. I mean, there's a lot of departments that Masters of Counseling is an example of this. This is tied into their accreditation if they have to show this data. So we're just the ones kind of leading that charge. So it is a significant endeavor to get to the knowledge that we try to get to in that process. We collaborate with the registrar's office. We work with the alumni office. There's multiple levels that we try to get to that knowledge, but we just appreciate if you ever hear, you know, Kathy's great in sciences. She pushes us information all the time. So if you hear of, you know, our grad's going to grad school and he's going to be pursuing this degree, you know, definitely let us know. It'd be very helpful.
So you don't care if it's duplicate information. I mean, you'd rather have more information than less, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Diane's been really helpful
Oh,
with this.
sure.
I mean, she's
She's got a thumb on it.
right, right.
And soon will be putting together a report from last year and coming either to visit with your chair or you're in your department meeting to share your results. So that is something, like, we aren't just holding on to that survey information. We are gonna come back and share it with you, even though it seems a little out of date because it'll be 2017's class, almost past a year later that we come visit you, but it's still like, it just takes that long for us to get all that info.
We base that collection off of a national organization. It's kind of a standards that supposedly schools are submitting to, so hopefully when you see those numbers, it's apples to apples. I mean, it's up to the school to submit to the, it's not a mandate, but it's just a good best practice. So we have 6 months after a class is done to keep collecting, and then we shut down. So December 31st is when we stopped seeking information. But our year, I mean, because cohorts are finishing all year long, it's just, it's really a lot to keep up with. But. Any questions about career development?
What are our rates?
This year was, I mean, one of the things that we really strive for is a high knowledge rate, so it seems relevant. So when I first came here, our knowledge rate was 30%.
Oh,
In the last 2 years, we're main campus, we're over 90%
nice.
of knowledge. All of Spring Arbor, we're over 80%. So we worked hard to just know a lot, and then we're right at 95% positive, which means military, part-time, full-time, grad school would be what would be a positive outcome.
Good.
So
That's great.
it was a good year, yeah.
Well, our office is just right around this corner. We're in student success and calling, and so if you want to point students there, they can make appointments with us at the front desk, or they can email us. We can set up appointments there. And if you email career@arbor.edu, both Chad and I see it, or you can just email our names. So.
Do you deal in real difficult career future cases? I mean, I'm hoping that the student that I'm thinking of particularly has already been in and out of your office many times, but this student has been bounced around from department to department for a few years now here at Spring Arbor, and no one can find a good fit for her. And so I think I'll come speak to you personally about her and see if you've been in conversation with her. But we pray for her weekly and try to get her through classes and try to figure out what she's going to do with her life. And I mean, that's the kind of thing that you guys deal with as
There are,
well.
right, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Good.
there's resources, in the community that can sometimes be helpful that we can help advocate for. There's, things that we can do, so it just kind of depends on the situation.
Well, I'll stop by sometime and chat with you guys.
A really common appointment is, can you help me with my resume? So that's something we do a lot, cover letters, preparing for interviews, whether that's for an internship or getting ready to apply for jobs. So that's if you hear students want to think about those practical preparations.
Another thing too, I'll just add, for fall semester, we spend a lot of time with undeclared students. So those that haven't, we run an undeclared class that's exploring, not just their interests, but their calling and what kind of skill set they have, and really directing them to find what they're passionate about. So in the fall, I feel like that's a lot heavier, where the freshmen come in, like, I know I wanted to go to college, but I don't really know what I want to do. So Chad and I are having those kinds of conversations, and then we push them on to interview you guys, because you know exactly like what's the rigor in your program, what opportunities that might be there that they don't even realize, in chemistry and music. So combining some of their loves with education. So we'll be partners in that too, and we have those freshman classes, or we have a lot of nursing students who know that maybe I want to be in the health field, but maybe this is too much, or so we're helping them reimagine what their Spring Arbor career can be, because they've hit a wall. So that's another touch point between us and faculties.
That's exciting to know, because you guys are to be commended for that, because I've noticed both years, from fall to spring, a huge drop in the undeclared majors. So I didn't know that's what you guys were doing. I was like, this is impressive. They already know by the second semester. So I think that's great. Kudos to you guys. So.
Now we don't push them to declare,
No,
but we
right.
do like
give them a lot
try-
of choices.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Our office pushes them.
Right.
You need to decide.
Yeah, there's that handful that's always like, so we try to get them in class, or, something that can at least give them a little deeper dive, but-
Sure.
Were you able to hear us on the virtual part of the meeting?
Yeah, I did hear.
Okay.
Yep, I can hear you.
Great.
Great.
Thanks, you guys.
Yeah.
Thank
The
you.
next person that's supposed to be here is Laura, so.
Okay.
We're
I
gonna have a
don't
big
know.
crowd to give you a hand, but.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thanks a lot.
What time is she?
See Mike here.
At 4:30, is it 4:30? She's got 2 more minutes, so
It's fine, we can just chill.
we can just chill for a couple minutes, yeah, till Laura gets here. She's supposed to be here at 4:30, so.
Okay.
You guys have any questions, joining us by phone?
Yeah, totally.
No, thank you, not yet.
Not yet,
Usually
okay.
not too, not sleeping.
We're waiting for our next speaker to come, so.
It's so far, thank you.
Okay, good. Oh, there she is. Okay, she's here, so we don't have to wait any longer.
going, and I was coming out. I was like, all right, I'm right on time this time.
This is Laura Bruckner. If you can, like, close to the computer so they can get by the microphone. We have 3 people online. Lori McVeigh, Camille Jones, and I can't remember who the other one is.
Humes is my last name.
Okay.
H-U-M-E-S.
Sorry.
Humes.
And then one other person, and I don't know who that is. I don't know. Anyway.
Maybe they.
This is Laura Bruckner. She is in charge of our Student Success Initiatives, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about advising and mentorship today. So,
Thank you. Hi, Lori. Hi, Camille. Is that right?
Camille.
Camille and
whoever the other
else.
person
Thanks for joining us via Zoom. Sounds like someone's driving.
yeah. Can you mute yourself? There we go.
Perfect. Well, good to see you all again. I know I think you all were in the last orientation that I
Sure.
visited with,
Yep.
right? Okay, good. So, with that in mind, I kind of know I already talked with you guys about student success advising. So I won't go into too much detail, but definitely let me know if you have questions.
Laura, spell your last name for us.
Breckner, Breckner. Yep. Oh, I should have brought my business cards with me. So just a couple updates that I'll run through, and then just definitely let me know as you guys have questions. So I wanted to touch base regarding early progress checks. That process went through last week, so you should have gotten an email from, I think Catherine Stoles ended up sending it out on behalf of Dr. Rupert. So that's a process that we go through to try to identify any students very early on who might be struggling, because that is actually the best indicator of student retention and graduation, is how well they're doing during kind of, like, really it's their first assignment in their first class on campus, but that's kind of how we kind of gather that information through that process. So thank you if you already submitted those updates. I appreciate it. If not, no worries. Just keep it in mind for next semester that we have that process at the beginning of every semester. That runs through the first, so it's in the 3rd week of the first semester, or actually each semester. Sorry, mixed up here, but so again, just keep that in mind. And then also we have the early alert process that I talked you guys through the last time I met with you. So just keep in mind that that runs anytime. So anytime you have a concern about a student, please use that. Did want to mention kind of emergency issues.
Sorry, can site people use that early alert?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry, I was told this was main campus people, but there's also
What, there's,
sites.
yeah, I think Camille, I think she works in MAC, and there's a couple
Yep.
others, so even grad programs and
Yep,
everybody can
yep.
use that early alert system.
Yep, it's an
Okay.
entire kind of university initiative, and so the alerts for main campus go to our student success advisors, Emily and Katie, which Katie's going to be out on maternity leave as of tomorrow. So Julie Morse will be filling in for Katie. So they will receive those alerts for main campus students. And when they receive them, they kind of activate kind of a support network for students. So if we know that the student has a good relationship with their peer advisor, we'll try to pull them in. Or their RA, we'll try to pull them out. And coaches are really helpful with that as well to get kind of students in gear. And then for the sites and online, all of those come to me, and then again, I try to activate a support network for that student as well. So going back to kind of the emergent issues, because we have had a couple alerts come through where actually instructors have shared with us that students have had suicidal thoughts and ideations, and so I really want to ask you guys not to use the alert system for that because it's not an immediate response. So I would say if it's during normal business hours, contact campus safety, and they'll contact also our counselor on campus. And of course, if it's after hours, use 911. So really, we should probably be contacting 911 if it's definitely an emergency situation, either way, but also would be campus safety. So yeah, so that's some of kind of like what the student success advisors have been working on. They also are working with probation students, so anybody who's on probation or also on warning. And so we kind of divide up among some of the people on our within our department to meet with every student who's on probation or on warning to try to build with them an action plan to try to kind of review what went wrong previously and let them know like not all is lost. You could start over again, look at that and try to implement any strategies that we can to try to improve in the future. We do kind of the first, I guess, step in any action plan that we try to push students towards is meeting with their instructor. So I did want you to know that that is kind of our first go-to because we definitely think that that's a priority. So with mentoring, so there's a couple different ways that mentoring happens on campus. So I'm not specifically like one who oversees that process, but I can at least speak some to that. We have multiple people within our office who we kind of have been informed of students who are looking for mentors, and we serve as mentors. That typically happens actually through Brian Kono. A lot of students go to him and let him know that they would like a mentor. But then also there's our mentoring alumni program. Have you guys heard about that at all? It's also called the MAP. Have they heard about that?
I have.
Oh.
I personally
I didn't know
have.
if you were saying that they already
No,
covered
I
it.
personally have heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the mentoring alumni program is through Alumni Relations. So Steve Castle is kind of the driver of that. And students can go onto the portal, and on the students tab, they'll see a map. It's actually a map on the right-hand side, and they can click on that. And that is numerous alumni who have indicated that they want to feed back into this community and serve as mentors for students, kind of in a professional standpoint. So students can search by field that they're planning on going into, or also location. So if they know that they want to go out to LA or whatever, they can connect with an alum who's out there and get some professional mentoring. And also, definitely that wisdom about, hey, I have this desire to make films in LA. How did you end up out there in LA? And get fed that way. So Those are kind of the two avenues of mentoring that I'm aware of on campus, but definitely if you guys know of students who are just looking for some mentorship on campus, know that our office, our department is happy to serve in that way, as I'm sure many departments are as well on campus. So we would look to find, an adequate mentor for any student who's looking, depending on what their interest is or goals that they have to come out of that mentoring. So, any questions about the advising, since I spoke about that in more depth the last time? Were there any questions that have kind of come up while you guys have been working with students? No? Okay.
Are you guys advisors?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, I've been given one student, and I've already totally messed her up, so. So we've discussed this, and we, as I mentioned, we've got, well, as I mentioned to you, Sherry, we've just got some issues that we need to clear up in terms of some of our old forms, and so, anyway, but yes, beginning that process, so.
Yeah. Okay.
And with Dr. Brown retiring, a lot of the students that have been his will roll over to me.
Oh,
That's where the
okay.
load probably is gonna go, so I'm gonna have this, all of a sudden, this influx of students that I'll be
Yeah.
advising because he's retiring, so.
So we gotta make sure you have the right
Make
stuff.
sure we get it right.
Yes,
yeah.
that's right.
Okay. Okay. Well, let us know how we can support you in that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this might be a big undertaking. I can't promise I'll have every answer to your questions, but wanted to provide an opportunity to, because I do fall under the student development and success department, and so if you guys have questions about res life, student development, campus safety, my husband works in campus safety, so I can try to answer any of those questions that you might have.
So tell me what's the hierarchy of the PA, RA, TA, I don't even know, what is all that?
Hierarchy.
Of-
So as far as
of resident life,
structure.
like students, would they immediately, they have some resident assistants, they have, who do they have that they can turn to,
Yeah, so if they're a resident student,
right?
they would have an RA as soon as they move on to campus.
And that's a resident assistant?
Yeah, sorry.
And how many people do they
Ooh.
take care of?
I
Or how
think-
does it work? So what's the structure?
Yeah, good question. See, I can't answer all of them.
Okay, all right.
I was an RA, but not here, so I can tell you kind of the typical structure is that there's one per floor, and
Okay.
typically that's one for every 30 students. Sherry, would you say that's consistent with your
Probably about
experience
right,
too?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a resident director a long time ago too,
I
so.
see.
Yeah, so I kinda know how it works too, but you're doing
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
And they report to whom?
To a resident director.
Resident
Yep, each one
director.
of them would have
And
a
that's usually a
resident
grown up.
And that's.
Yeah, that is a professional staff member.
Right.
And they're over one dorm, more than one dorm?
Typically here more than one residence hall, or we also have the villages, which are more kind of independent living areas.
So about how many resident directors do we have?
We have, well, let me go through the names. Jenna Marhefka, Julie Adkins, Billy Stone, Jeff Tabone. Someone else I'm missing. I'm gonna feel really bad if there's someone I'm missing. I think that's it.
Okay.
I don't know. so.
Yeah, yeah.
And they report to Dan Vanderhill, or is there somebody else above them?
Yeah, they report to Dan Vanderhill.
Okay.
Yep, yep. And then Bobby Pratt does do housing. So, but he's not necessarily over them, but works closely with
Okay.
them. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So when students come to campus, they would have an RA, resident assistant, a peer advisor, and the peer advisors mainly run through kind of the core program. So if they're in COL 100, they would have a PA connected to that. But we also have some PAs who are a little bit outside of that, but still report to Carrie Williams.
And about how many students do a peer advisor have as advisees?
Yeah, it would depend on the core group. And so I think typically each core group is like around 18 students. Do you know that?
Yeah, 18 to 20, I think.
Yeah.
The 20 is the max.
So there's one peer
So-
advisor for 18 to 20 students?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then,
They don't have male and female, so they just have one.
right, but they do have what they call brother and sister cores, and so there's typically one female core leader and a male core leader with groups who do a lot of activities together, and so they get to know each other pretty well.
So the cores are by gender.
They are not by gender, they're mixed.
But you're saying they try to have one of each so that they have at least somebody of their gender they can speak to?
Yeah, so, yeah, if they have a situation going on that, say, I'm a student in a core group and I have a male core leader or peer advisor, if I'm not comfortable, then hopefully I at least have a good relationship with with our sister core, and I
Great.
can speak with that peer advisor, yep. So, yeah, we also have a retention PA who serves with our commuter students, so I also serve as kind of what we call our commuter liaison, and I do different activities with our commuter students. We have, this is
Excellent,
actually good.
excellent, that's good.
Yeah, good information.
That's good, yeah, because sometimes the commuters feel, I mean, you can tell that they feel not left out,
Yeah.
but
Not
it's a
ingrained.
general
Yeah.
alienation just
Yeah.
because you're coming in, yeah.
Right, yep, and I've just recently been doing some research, which I'm kind of encouraged by, like, what we have been doing, because, and maybe you guys already know this, like, research is saying that the biggest reason for commuters to leave is a lack of a sense of belonging on
Yeah.
campus, and so I'm really trying to do as much as we can to really feed into that, because we did kind of start to hear that from some students, and so I came into this role last year, and then now we started this retention PA role to also help me, and we do, once a month we bring them lunch, we bring pizza to them, and typically I'll have another staff member come in and talk about the support that they provide to students in their role, so that they're aware of a lot of the services.
That's great, well, and I'm sure a lot of departments do this, but we try to do this in the choir areas. We try to really latch on to our commuter students to help them
Oh,
have
good.
that belonging in the choir setting.
Oh, that's awesome.
It becomes a real social group for them.
Yeah.
You can meet friends from all different departments and such, where it's harder for, when you go into a science class or to a
Yeah.
different, math class, you're not gonna, have that instant, camaraderie
Yeah.
necessarily, so we try to do that. Do you know what's the percentage of commuter students or non-on-campus living students?
Yeah, so
Just
if I'm
approximately.
doing my math, it's a little over a third, because I think we have a little over 300 main campus students who are commuters. So,
So there's about 600 that live on campus, or 800, 700?
well, I think we're at 1,100 on campus.
Okay.
So, well, I think like on main campus, so
Live
300
on
of the
campus?
1,100 main campus students
I see.
are commuters.
I see, so we have about 800 that live on campus.
Yeah. So yeah, we do once a month once a month lunches with them. Now we are starting to do once a month evening activities as well. So we've tried, unfortunately we haven't had people show up. So I did a survey at the
Really?
end of last semester asking them what they would want, and we had a movie night come out of that, attending athletic events on that, and so we did like a meetup for commuters before a basketball game once, and
Oh,
no one
nice,
showed up.
nice.
And we did a movie night actually last Friday, and no one showed up. So,
Oh, so they didn't show up for either of those?
yeah, so we're talking about like, do we need to promote this better? What can we do better going forward? So hopefully we'll get some improvement there.
Interesting.
But I have actually, so it's been funny too, I've had a couple of commuters stop into our office to say, I love what you guys are doing with commuters, I appreciate that you're doing this, and they haven't shown up either. So at least they're feeling
Glad you're
supported.
doing it for everybody
Right,
else.
at least they're
Yeah.
feeling like, hey, at least they're doing something for us,
Right.
whether we know or not is
Right.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So it is kind of funny because there's obviously the spectrum with commuter students. Some of them don't want you to talk to them at all, don't want you to send them emails, nothing. And then there's some that really say that they want to engage and just
Right.
don't know how.
Do you guys know in your classes who are commuter students
No
and who
idea.
aren't? You do?
I have one, she's in my office all the time.
So that's how you know, because she's always,
She
okay.
does research with me, yeah. She lived here last year, I think. I mean, my one class, I don't have any. My larger class, I
How do you know?
don't know. I asked them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's lab, right? It's chemistry. It's not that interesting, so I asked them.
Well, Maybe I just ask them what dorm they're in, and they're like, I'm not in a dorm, I commute.
I just asked them where
Yeah.
they live.
Sure.
Yeah.
Where are you from, where they
Yeah.
live, so.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good, yeah. Well, I
I
would
guess
love
it's
to
the
visit
whole
with
thing.
some of your groups that you work with too, just to let them know that there's another connection point on campus if they ever have any questions or concerns.
That'd be great.
I'd love to meet with them.
Great. I
That's
mean,
good.
anytime.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I'll let you know when we meet, so you can come.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. So I'm trying to think back to your question. It was what connections do they have when they're on campus, right?
Is it the commuters?
You were
Or the-
saying
or
any
the-
student,
Yeah, no,
right?
that helps. The resident assistant, resident director,
Okay.
peer advisor, retention peer advisor, commuter students. No, that's very helpful.
Okay.
Because I've heard those terms. I've heard PA, RA, RD thrown around. I'm like, okay, I'm glad you talked to your PA.
What does that mean?
Yeah, right. Yep.
No, that's very helpful, very
Good,
helpful.
good. Anything else that I?
But I will say that anytime that I've been involved with somebody, or where I've shared an alert with you guys, the response has been terrific. You guys have been terrific, and it's really helped students. And so I'm so thankful for that.
Good.
That portal, that thing on the portal.
Yeah, good.
That alert, because, sometimes you just don't know if it's significant or not significant, and I'd rather let somebody else decide that
Right.
than me, because
Right.
I don't know if it is or not. But you guys have just been great about that, and it's really helped some students with some difficult situations, so.
Yeah.
I think too, it's important I know that we've struggled with getting faculty to use that early alert system,
Yeah.
because faculty a lot of times feel like, well, I can deal with it, I can handle it, or whatever. But sometimes, if there's a pattern
Right.
with a particular student and only one professor is submitting something,
Absolutely.
I think of Virginia Tech and some of these other places where we have student shooter, these people
Yeah.
that come out of the, if there had been a trend or somebody knowing that, okay, this student is struggling in more than just one class,
Right. Yeah.
and there's a communication that's a centralized place where somebody could recognize that,
Right.
that something could be, maybe something could be avoided, or the student could be helped in a way, or counseled,
Yeah.
and it could be identified. So I do think that early alert system is really important.
Yeah.
Do we dive in Monday? I thought due Monday.
Well, the early progress checks were actually due last
Mon-
Friday.
I thought it's Monday the 19th.
Yeah, I thought it was 2 days ago.
But
Oh, maybe it was due Monday the 19th.
there are two
I
different things. We're
apologize.
talking about the early progress report, and then the
Yeah.
early alert system.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that
the
can be
early-
done
yeah.
any,
Like struggling and.
yeah, that can be done at any point. That doesn't have to be done at the very beginning
So
of the
my issue
semester.
with progress reports, like I haven't given exams yet, like I'm giving exams this week, so it's kind of like, well, I don't know how to do it. I haven't even given a test.
Right,
I did
right.
mine off of quizzes. I had done.
Yeah, but I do online quizzes, so I don't, it's more like homework than quizzes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really show.
It is a face-to-face class that you have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would also say attendance is a big
Yeah.
thing to check on, especially early in the semester. Yeah, because we definitely need to know if students haven't shown up at all. That could be a big
Yeah,
issue.
well, if they haven't shown up at all, we need to drop them so that they're
Right.
not charged.
Exactly.
So that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so to your point, so
Mhm.
we pull into a report for ourselves, we pull in all of the early progress checks that were marked with some sort of concern and our early alerts together so that we can try to see where there's overlap or multiple kind of identifiers of concern for students. Yeah, just so we can get a good picture of what's going on with the student. And we've started to do that because we kind of like, again, with research, they kind of talk about how you might be alerted to one class that a student is doing poorly in and just focus on that one class, where if you expand that, you kind of find out that they're actually doing worse in another class that we might not be on our radar. So you kind of try to catch that, but
That's
then,
good.
yeah, but then also in our action plans, we try not to focus just on what we've gotten information on, but also kind of try to talk through like how, kind of in a roundabout way, so that they will actually answer our questions about how are you doing in your other classes, how's life in general, that sort of thing.
Did somebody over there have a question on the phone?
Yeah, it's Lori. The early progress report this semester actually was, I do the memory semester, but this semester in particular, I actually ended up changing how I'm evaluating my students because I was able to identify a trend where a lot of the class was struggling with one particular aspect. So I ended up changing my syllabus in mid-semester.
So that was helpful. Oh, did we lose her?
I don't know.
I think we may have lost her. There were 3 and now there's 2.
Right.
So that helped. Lori, I think we lost Lori, but I think what that meant was that she used that progress report to help her kind of with her own class structure,
Right.
to develop, to change her grade. So Katie, and you're doing don't have any assignments, so you can't identify any students in the early alert, but maybe in future semesters
yes,
doing
I
something
could
different.
Put the first exam before the early progress check. Which I did
That
that
would be
last
helpful.
semester in freshman biology, and so many of them failed it. I ended up getting a ridiculous number. The poor Katie was like struggling to keep with all these freshmen that had failed the first test,
Sure.
which may not be an indication of how they're going to do in the class, but
Mhm.
it is a red flag.
Yeah.
But that's typical for freshman biology to have a lot of students fail the first test, so.
Yeah. Now, would you say that's typical no matter when that first test occurs? Like, did it make a difference having it a week later for you? Did you say it was a week later? I
I'm
don't
giving
know.
my first test this week.
So you don't know yet.
I don't know yet.
Oh,
I take it
yeah.
Friday, so.
So it'll be interesting to know.
Yeah,
if it made a
to
difference
compare
or not.
what happened last semester and this semester, if that.
But these are all, they're no longer freshmen, so. I
Well,
think
that's
that
true,
makes a
too.
difference.
Yeah.
The second semester.
They have better study skills and they're more prepared for the test, so I don't know if you can compare.
Gotcha.
So you might need like
It has
2 or
to
3
be
years data to be able
Freshman
to.
biology to freshman biology,
Yeah.
like, I think.
Yeah.
So do you keep statistics on like the mentoring and stuff? 'Cause I started a couple mentoring groups for freshman biology majors. Do you need to know that data? Do
I
need to
don't, because
report
I don't
that?
oversee
Okay.
anything with mentoring, but I can check with those who do.
I mean, if they want the
oversee.
information, I can give it
Yeah.
to them.
I don't think we do, but.
I don't know if there's some good report you guys gotta do at the end of the year or something. Statistics. We have to do a report. Bigger plan.
Oh, yeah? Okay. All right, well, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Laura.
Appreciate